the face of this plane under the firmament, right? Well, there's a lot of things that are lies that have been taught to us so that we can't see the truth, folks. And one of the greatest lies ever told, when I say one of the greatest lies ever told, is the shape of what we live on, folks, and what we live on, and how it's not some spinning ball that's got some red hot liquid magma and ocean on the top of it, spinning at thousands of miles an hour, hurling through space at thousands of miles an hour, and yet the North Star just never moves, right? I want to tell you that a lot of things that you've been taught are lies, and it's by design, and it's no mystery that the weather and the weather models and the mechanisms by which things that we observe in nature operate are lies in terms of what we've been taught. Specifically, these tornadoes, folks. It's horrific where, I've been through the South. I know people who live in the South. And it's a tragic situation where simple people, getting by and trying to raise a family and, try to make an honest living, are having their lives literally turned into hell by weather modification, right? Because that's exactly what's going on. Now, what is happening is there are these massive storm systems and tornadoes spawning as a result of these storm systems. Or are they a result of these storm systems? Are these storm systems simply the cover for the creation of these tornadoes? Well, one of the things that you need to understand about everything that is going on is that there is a solid structure supporting waters above the earth, folks. That's not some archaic concept of the universe. That is a factual representation of a description of the design by Almighty God and the physical characteristics designed and created by Almighty God of what we live on and what we live under. Now, the implications of this, folks, are extremely important. Now, you need to understand what the implications of this are. Just a moment here. There are large weaponry systems that have been invented by your sons and daughters that have been sent off to quote-unquote school, to college, where your sons and daughters invent these weapons, folks, and they're trained to learn these theoretical applications of quote-unquote science and physics and mathematics so that they can quote-unquote create and invent things that ostensibly are for the furtherance and the benefit of mankind, which in reality are nothing more than the development of weaponry that is being used to further agendas, okay? And the number one agenda right now that's going live right now as we speak is the climate change agenda, which is a hoax. The real climate change is being accomplished through weather modification. And weather modification is an operation that's been underway for, literally 50 years, folks. They've signed, the different countries all over the world have signed weather warfare treaties at least 50 years ago. They've owned the weather for 50 years, folks. Now, in case you haven't noticed, things like aviation, the technology in aviation has been stagnant for 50 years. And we're still using jet engines and these jet aircraft. Same design, just a little more computers. But by and large, the principles of, I'm going to state something right here, you need to pay attention. The principles of things like levitation, okay, which is how jet aircraft operate. They operate by levitation. There's thrust involved. But by and large, they run on compressed air and levitation. Now, levitation is an important concept because levitation is accomplished through a variety of means, right? levitation can be accomplished primarily through resonance, all right? And when you want to have a really simple example of resonance involving levitation, you can look at, I believe, insects in the phylum Hymenoptera, if you will, I guess bees, right? Bees and wasps, these things levitate, folks, and it's not from air displacement. It's from resonance, sound resonance, and resonance being piped through the chambers in the wings, okay? That's how the bees levitate. It's miraculous. It's through levitation that they can hover. You know, they can literally make a 90-degree turn and stop midair. And, you know, the wings, they hum, they buzz. Through resonance, right? Well, jet aircraft through resonance also can hover. Ever seen any on approach, right? They can levitate. So can physical objects being abducted into a torsion field called a tornado. Now, a lot of the weather warfare is being conducted through the use of something called scalar weapons, right? And scalar energy is a type of energy that a lot of people are not taught about, just like when you go to college, like I did, for science. I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry and a bachelor's degree in biological science. And so I was taught a lot of physics, calculus, and you know, differential equations, and regular biology, cellular biology, microbiology, psychobiology, biochemistry, organic chemistry, physical chemistry, nuclear chemistry, right? Different levels of physics, and on it goes, right? But I was never taught something called magnetobiology, right? In other words, we learned all about how chemicals affect biology, but never about how magnetism affects biology. Well, a lot of you have never been taught about how magnetism and energy affects matter in ways, because a lot of you have never been taught that a lot of this energy and weaponry operates by bouncing off of the roof, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to repeat that. A lot of the weaponry that is in operation accomplishes its dirty, dastardly deeds of weather modification by being beamformed and bounced off of the firmament, folks. Now, did you know that almost all communications are terrestrial? That's right. Many of the things that you think are being relayed by satellites are literally being beamformed and bounced off of the firmament, off of the solid structure that supports the waters above us, folks. We're in a closed system. They use the roof for a lot of things. Back when they were blowing up these bombs at 50, 60, 70 miles up in the air, I think it was in the 50s, they were trying to energize the firmament so it would be a better propagator of signals. And consequently, when we had this so-called emergence of quote-unquote technology, right? So what they have now is done. I'll tell you quick, folks. I've lived in Southern California my whole life, and I've made this statement before. I was going to be a weatherman when I got out of high school. I was going to become a meteorologist, but I didn't want to leave the beautiful Southern California area and the beaches and the fishing and the overall experience of living in probably the best weather in the world, right? So, but that didn't change my observational characteristics and habits of weather phenomena. And even in the early 70s, mid 70s, late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, I was literally categorizing and cataloging barometric pressure readings, relative humidity, high and low temperature, wind directions, and speeds for probably about 25 years. I've written accounts of these things. And these written accounts were made with my own personal things like my own barometer and temperature gauge, things like that. I didn't have a wind gauge. I relied on the coastal weather information recording from the Sheriff's Harbor Patrol in Newport Beach for a lot of my wind speeds and confirmation of barometric pressure. But what I'm getting at is that the weather has changed drastically, okay? And the normal weather patterns that I observed as a child were very, very easy to predict in terms of when they arrived, what they would do, how long they would last, and what they would do when they departed, and the characteristics that were displayed in these weather phenomena, whether it be an offshore condition, a Santa Ana condition, an onshore flow, a Catalina eddy, a marine layer, a cold front, a cutoff low, or what they call an inside slider. We had all these different weather phenomena in Southern California. And for me, they're very easy to recognize because it was very important that I would recognize the weather pattern so I would be able to time when I would either take my boat out into the channel of between Long Beach and Orange County and Catalina Island, because my boats were pieces of junk and I wasn't able to take something out that wasn't seaworthy in rough seas. So I had to time it well, folks, but I knew the weather and I knew what was coming. And I also knew what kind of weather we would have for a season based on the performance of my fruit trees and their blossoms and their fruiting and the productivity or lack thereof. I knew what kind of a summer and spring and winter we were going to have. That's why I said to my wife, when the fall began last year, I said, we're going to have one heck of a wet winter, honey. I said, I don't care what they're telling us. We're in an El Nino pattern. We're not in a La Nina pattern. They're lying. So what's been done lately, folks? I'm going to break it down for you right now. All right, we had an interruption there. Okay, we back? Are we back? All right. We're back. Okay, good. All right, so they have dropped the jet stream, I would say probably 1,000 miles to the south for a good month and a half. All right? And that is accomplished through ionospheric heating and pressure gradients that are created by a combination of scalar weaponry and microwave weaponry that act on the air masses. And they can guide and steer. They can guide and steer the jet stream anywhere they want. Now, we've had consistent cold weather patterns making landfall over the southwestern United States for about 6 weeks to 8 weeks now. And they're lying about the barometric pressure readings. We've got literal, storms dumping water on us, and they're telling us that the barometer is 30.05 inches of mercury, right? And we've got these southeast winds, 20, 30 miles an hour, and there's no rain with them. The clouds are here. They're not dumping. And then all of a sudden it starts raining, and then we get a little bit of hail, and the barometer doesn't drop, right? And then when the storm system moves through, the barometer drops to like 30.0 or 29.98. Folks, that's ridiculous. Okay, they're lying about the barometric pressure readings. And they're manipulating the barometric pressure because that's how they move the jet stream around, okay? Now, what happened when they moved the jet stream to the south, they kept sweeping it to the south and keeping the warm air way away from meeting up with the jet stream. They're saying this was a Pineapple Express winter. They call these atmospheric rivers nonsense. This is nothing more than the manipulation of the jet stream's trajectory to make sure that cold air continues to bombard the southern United States so that it doesn't head north where it normally goes through, and it goes through the southern part of the United States, hooking up with the warmer air from the Gulf to create these horrific storms, which by themselves dump a tremendous amount of water because all of that moisture gets released. But what ends up happening is it's the perfect cover for the creation of tornadoes by this weaponry they have, okay? And this weaponry is the creation of these torsion fields that literally make things weightless. Have you noticed how it can pick up a semi-truck and put it down somewhere 2 miles away without even being damaged? It's literally like the whole concept of density and weight is just suspended, because it is a form of levitation that is created by the creation of these torsion fields, by the bouncing of these scalar wave weapons off of the firmament to strategic places where they energize these storms and electrify these storms to create the maximum amount of damage and havoc, so they can tell all of you and I that we've got to get out of our cars, that we can't have wood-burning fireplaces, that we can't burn natural gas, that we can't burn oil, that we can't burn petroleum, that we can't have any type of products in our lives that create what they call quote-unquote CO2, including our children who breathe it out. Because they're telling us that according to their fake science and the lies that are coming out of the mouths and the lying lips of the people in the educational system and in the media and in the colleges and even in the Boy Scouts and the churches now, about how climate change is the number one threat to the human race and to our world. When in fact, the number one threat to our world is the creation of weaponized idiots through the school systems that have created two classes of people: the people who believe the lies, and then the people who create the weapons. And so consequently, legislation continues to be scripted, typed up, roll off the printer, and passed in these houses and legislative bodies all over the country, banning and restricting the furtherance of our quality of life by demonizing and making illegal things that are absolutely necessary for our survival, like fire.